3-0 Seattle Seahawks, and we have a contender potentially. It depends what people think about the schedule. That's the biggest talk. But it feels good to be 3-0, number one overall rated team on PFF. And they're a good football team, I guess, is the easiest way to put it right now.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, PFF is Pro Football Focus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just in case someone didn't know what PFF is, but if you watch enough football, you probably know what PFF is. And yeah, some power rankings have us as high as 5, and I think we are one of the 5 best teams in the NFL right now. On my personal podcast on my YouTube channel, you can find it at George on Tap, I do like a real estate ranking of teams, Sammy. So like there's like the New York City penthouse, and I only have 2 teams there, the Chiefs and the Bills. And the second thing is I call Miami Mansion waterfront homes, and I have the Seahawks as one of my 3 teams. So I think we are.
I might prefer to be in a Miami Mansion on the water.
I know, but New York penthouse is more expensive.
That's fair. They're in the second tier of teams right now. You can't put them in the first unless they go to Detroit this week, Monday Night Football on the road, and win that game and look the way they've looked against other teams, a good defense, a scoring offense. You might be able to then at that point say, hey, this team is like there with the Chiefs and Bills as a top 2 or 3 team in the NFL. But I think that's the biggest thing that we get to here is right now in terms of the Seahawks being 3-0.
Yes.
The biggest complaint by most people, not complaint, or biggest like question mark, biggest step back on the, okay, we're 3-0 is they played the Patriots, Broncos, and Dolphins without Tua. A Dolphins team that's not playing well because they have no quarterback play.
True.
You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me, as always, is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
My theory, and that doesn't mean we're Super Bowl contenders yet or anything, but still, in the NFL, for me, there's a reason there's only 5 teams that are 3-0. And winning 3 straight in the NFL is winning 3 straight in the NFL. Now, that doesn't mean, once again, I'm not putting them with the Bills and the Chiefs, but being 3-0 in the NFL, a win is a win in the NFL. And I don't necessarily love to just look at the schedule and say, well, you haven't played anyone yet, because you've played 3 out of the 32 teams, and football is hard to go 3-0.
And you know, one of those things, like we just saw the Broncos go to and play, Tampa Bay at home, I believe, and beat Tampa Bay, who was 2-0, and everyone was talking about being a legit team and as a playoff team last year. I kind of like to do this exercise later on because I was looking at the Falcons' schedule, right? And before the season started, I was like, man, the Falcons' schedule is so easy, the easiest schedule I've ever seen. And now through 3 weeks, you go look at the Falcons' schedule and you're like, oh, it wasn't that easy. Who knows down the line, like if Tua comes back healthy or the Dolphins get a quarterback and all of a sudden they're a pretty good team. Patriots, I don't think they have that much hope. But the Broncos could get pretty good. They had a rookie quarterback making his first start. So maybe down the line, yes, we can say, oh, we beat the Patriots, Broncos, and Dolphins. But in hindsight, maybe at the end of the year, you look back and you're like, oh, 2 of those 3 wins were actually quality wins.
Yeah, and I would also say that when you look at, you're talking about teams and the records and schedules, and at the end of the day, nobody thought the 49ers would be 1-2, right? Because their schedule wasn't that hard to start the year. Or the Rams being 1-2, beating the 49ers. I think both points go to the fact that it's the NFL. Teams get better throughout the year. Some teams get worse. At the end of the day, you can be a team like the 49ers, who everyone expected to be one of those 3-0 teams right now. And they're sitting at 1-2 while the Seahawks are sitting at 3-0. And I'm not using this exercise just to compare to the 49ers, but my point is, like, it's the NFL. Like, year to year, you don't know what's going to happen. Half the season, everyone's talking about Daniel Jones needs to be benched every week, and then had a pretty decent game, and they beat the Browns, right? And he didn't look bad. You don't know what's going to come as the year goes on. To your point, what are these teams going to be down the line? And at the end of the day, 3-0 is 3-0. I mean, everyone else in our division's 1-2, and there's a reason for that. They haven't played as good a football as the Seahawks. I think there's obviously schedule plays a role, but I think both ways work. Schedule might have been a little easier, but still, who's playing the best football? Probably the team that's 3-0, not the teams that are 1-2.
Right. I mean, a lot of these teams, and looked at their schedule and found it easy. Like you said, the Bengals, I remember having the orange microphone. They lost to the Patriots and Commanders, and they're the biggest favorites of a week, both of those weeks.
And almost beat the Chiefs.
Almost beat the Chiefs. And actually, I think in all their games they lost was under a possession. So at the end of the day, football, especially as we keep saying, it sounds so cliche, but the National Football League is, yeah, every game is hard. There's no, any team can beat any team on any given Sunday.
Yeah, with any quarterback sometimes. I mean, let's not forget, Andy Dalton came into Carolina. Everybody's theory in Carolina was Bryce Young doesn't get a fair shot. It's unfair that he had to be in the Panthers organization. Andy Dalton came in and threw for 3 touchdowns and won a game.
And Skylar Thompson probably would have done that against any other team other than the Seahawks. Just shows how good our Seahawks defense is.
Well, actually, the Seahawks defense is in many statistics the number 1 defense in the NFL.
Yes, I know.
So it is harder to play against that Seahawks defense. So I am giving Skylar Thompson some leeway, actually, because you never know. If that was a game against a bad defense, maybe he's not that bad of a quarterback. It could have been Tua, and maybe it was still a 24-3 game.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's hard to play in Seattle with the defense that they're building in week 3 of Mike McDonald implementing that defense. And that's another point here that, I thought is important is, okay, we say the schedule is easy and stuff, cool. But still, the defense showed out against a Sean Payton offense and a Mike McDaniel offense. Those are 2 guys that are known probably as a top 5, top 6 offensive gurus in the NFL. Fair. And the Seahawks defense still showed out. Regardless of quarterback, regardless of situation, they still showed out and played excellent defense and offense when it mattered. I mean, the offense has been a little up and down, but they play the right offense when it matters. So for me, like the whole point of this 3-0 talk and the schedule talk is, the end of the day, it's hard. It's hard to go 3-0 in the NFL. There's only 5 teams left that are 3-0 for a reason. After next week, there's probably only going to be 2 or 3, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 teams that are 4-0. So if you're in that situation, regardless of schedule, regardless of how the games have gone, that's another point is the first 2 games of the season against Patriots and Broncos, they've come down to 6-point games, right? So 3 points and 6 points, actually. So whatever, all that happens, you're still talking about a team that's 3-0 and a team that it looks like the defense is just going to get better under Mike McDonald. Whatever he does, I'm done using this comparison after this episode, but it is that Sean McVay of defense comparison, right? Everyone said Sean McVay is going to come in, the Rams offense is going to be amazing and all this, and it was. Mike McDonald, I almost said McDaniels. Mike McDonald helped Jim Harbaugh turn around the defense in Michigan, and he left, but they won a national championship off of great built defense. Baltimore's defense was phenomenal under him. He comes to Seattle, number 1 on Pro Football Focus gradings, number 1 in points allowed, number 1 in yards after catch, number 1 in tons of categories. So at the end of the day, I think it is time to start also believing that this new coaching hire might have been a complete home run.
Yes, and doesn't mean that every game is going to go seamless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going.
Doesn't mean we're going 17-0 and making the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, we could, but we're not. No one's ever done that. But no, the thing is, we got Detroit on Monday Night Football coming up, and there's no shame, and I'm not saying we're going to lose, but there's no shame in losing that type of game.
I had it on as a loss. I had as a loss on our schedule when we started the year.
Same here, but now I have hope to win. Like now I feel like we might be playing better football than Detroit, which, by the way, 3 years in a row against Detroit, all 3 in Detroit. Schedule makers, it's like you can send them to Seattle one time if you don't.
Yeah, I don't know why it worked out that way, but there is I saw a clip on Twitter from like a Detroit Lions podcast talking about how the Seahawks have terrorized them over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those games in Detroit that each time Detroit thought they were going to win that game and they didn't. And the podcast was talking about how like they want to beat the Seahawks more than they want to beat a team like the 49ers. Like the Seahawks have spoiled big games for them back-to-back years at home. And this one's Monday Night Football. They're wearing their all-black uniforms. We're wearing our all-white. It's going to look cool on TV, I think, especially with like the blue around the Detroit Stadium. But to them, this is a big deal, and they're 2-1, right? So they'd be 2-2 if they lose this game,
right? In a division where the Packers are 2-1, the Vikings are undefeated, and them. Like there's 3 contenders. There's 2 divisions I feel like in the NFC that can have.
And the Bears can get good.
The Bears could get good, but it's just their offensive line is maybe worse than ours.
And they have Shane Waldron as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
that's another story for another day.
So, I mean, I feel like there's 2 divisions that are going to have multiple playoff teams come out of it, and that's NFC North and the NFC West. Like these are, I think, the 2 best divisions in the NFC.
Quick pit stop here to talk about our sponsor, Rebet. It is a social sports book, and you can use promo code ONTAP, and you can use it in Washington State, and you'll get 100% deposit up to $100. So if you put in $10, they'll give you a $10 free bet. But make sure you use promo code ONTAP, and make sure you use rebet. George, tell them why they should do it.
Because it's the only way you can wager using your phone in Washington State and 46 out of 50 states.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can do player props, money lines. We're not just talking about like prize picks or other bets. So like this is a social sports book. So check it out. Promo code ONTAP. Make sure you use that to get your deposit match and so we get credit. Back to the pod. I still think the AFC.
Oh, I'm talking about the NFC, not the
okay.
AFC.
I was gonna say
talking about our conference.
I was gonna say the AFC North because like I feel like the Bengals will rattle off like 7 wins, and the Ravens started 0-2, and they're gonna rattle off some wins. Steelers are 3-0, but in the NFC, those two divisions, I think you'll get one team from the North. It'll either be like the Saints or the Bucks, and then you're gonna get the South. Sorry, and then the North and the West is gonna get the rest of the teams because. If you consider the NFC West too, which this is what's exciting about the 3-0 start, and potentially if we can win 4-0 start, we have a lot of tough games coming up in the division. I don't think, and I know the Rams had a lot of injuries, but you saw them go beat the 49ers. There is not, maybe last year it was, but this year, Cardinals are not easy. The 49ers not an easy win, and the Rams are not an easy win. On top of the fact that divisional games are never really easy.
Correct.
They're always, sometimes obviously, you know what I mean. Like on average in general, those are games that are tough. And those are the times you lose sometimes randomly to a 2-5 Arizona team because they're just divisional opponents and they see each other a lot. But this division, there's not going to be much easiness going on. I think the Cardinals are actually pretty good. I think the Rams are going to be better than they are right now, and they just beat the 49ers. I think the 49ers are just going through a little slump. They remind me of like the Bengals or other teams like that. They're not going to lose 7, 8, 9 games.
Injuries. I mean,
but they're not going to be 7-10.
No, they won't. But their injuries are serious. I mean, Christian McCaffrey. No one goes to Germany to check on your injury if it's a routine injury.
Yeah, and they say it's like calf attached to Achilles part. Like that's serious for running back. If he pops his Achilles, your career might go downhill as a running back.
Exactly. So, actually, both of those teams in my real estate rankings were just in the hospital.
Yeah,
but which is like I said. We talked about this on our last podcast. It's an opportunity for us.
Yeah.
We don't root for teams to be injured, but it's an opportunity for us to take advantage of it, get some wiggle room in the division. And when they do get healthy, maybe we're 4 games up and we go play a really good San Francisco team. And
a loss doesn't kill your chances
of winning the division. Yeah, and you just have to take this opportunity. And so far we have, and I think we're going to continue to do so. But my major concern I wanted to bring up to you is the offensive line. There's going to be games where the defense is so stellar, but we're gonna give up points and turnovers because of our offensive line. We saw Geno Smith throw a horrible interception because of our offensive line. He had 1 second. Instead of taking a safety, he threw it out of the end zone, intercepted on the 5, and then our defense, as tough as nails, didn't even allow him to get anything, and they had to settle for a field goal. So
and the 2 safeties in week 1 is, I mean, a lot of times safeties at the 1 yard line could be the offensive line not holding anybody up.
That's also true. So like I think that's my biggest concern for this team, and I hope we can find a way to patch it up, or just have to play a different brand of football where it's quick release and hopefully get ourselves in 3rd and 2 situations and hopefully run the ball well. That's hard with a bad offensive line.
Yeah, my biggest concern, I think we were on like Pro Football Focus grading. I think we were like 7th in the run block, which is why Kenneth Walker looked good the week he was playing. Charbonnet looked good last week, but I think we were 28th out of 32 in pass blocking, and it all comes back to Geno Smith's kind of done the different type of play, but he's kind of done some Russell Wilson-esque things, like getting the team out of trouble with no time, making plays that are not expected when he has no time, but that doesn't last. Like that, when the quarterback starts getting hit all the time and has no time, that just does not last long term. And what concerns me the most is yesterday the Seahawks hosted Jason Peters, the 42-year-old offensive lineman who played 8 games for the Seahawks last year. They're hosting him because that means George Fant did go on the IR, and George Fant was brought in to hold down a spot for Abraham Lucas, who there's been no word of him coming back. Like I saw Brady Henderson yesterday, the Seahawks ESPN reporter, say that it could be mid-year, like week 8, week 9. Like we're talking about a situation on the right side of the line where we might be rolling with a 42-year-old offensive tackle and not really knowing who's going to play right tackle for multiple weeks. And that is, to your point, I mean, that's the only part of, like, if you look at statistics, grading, whatever you want to look at, the eye test, that's the only part of the team that really could hold back the team from being a NFC West winner this year.
Yeah, it is bad news if you have to start Jason Peters, but at the same time, the tackle position reminds me a lot of a quarterback position. It's not like they're sitting there on the street ready to roll. There's not star tackles sitting there like, all right, ready, come give me. It's hard. It's hard to replace offensive linemen in the NFL. That's why they're so valuable. That's why people pick them so high in the draft. That's why team seasons are like made or break on offensive line play. The Chiefs a few years ago had 4 out of 5 starters injured in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers and lost the Super Bowl because their offensive line gave Mahomes no chance. I don't care who's the quarterback.
The Bengals, 7 sacks in the Super Bowl against the Rams. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Joe, they talked about it, and I think it was 7 or 8 sacks, and Joe Burrow did not play well against that Aaron Donald-led Rams defensive line. That they lost the Super Bowl because of their offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is back there. You can put back their prime Tom Brady, and if the offensive line can't protect, you're going to have a hard time masking the deficiencies. And I think that's really what's going to be happening here. And hopefully the defense holds its ground enough, and we can have the ball long enough and play the field position game and the possession game and keep our defense rested, because if our defense is rested and has time and on the field all game, they are lethal.
Well, there's one part, though, that can be a differentiator, which is, and I think we've seen that a few times against the Patriots. It didn't work out as much. The offense was a little stale for a while. Same with the Broncos game. For a little bit, they were stale. But when you have an offensive line that can run block at least, which the Seahawks offensive line has been good at, the best case scenario would be Kenneth Walker's healthy, the offensive line continues to do good in the run game, and hopefully that causes some balance in the offense where you have to heavily protect the run. That gives Geno some extra time, because if that run blocking if we play a really good defensive line, let's say, and the run blocking's not there for a game, you're talking about a team that's going to have a lot more trouble, even like when you can't even have a balanced attack because it's the offensive line's bad in the pass and the run block, things will go downhill pretty quickly. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen, obviously. Hopefully it stays the way it's been, and hopefully Kenneth Walker gets healthy. And I'll use that as a transition to my next point, which is, the Seahawks are still 3-0, but they have dealt with some injuries already. They've dealt with Kenneth Walker out for 2 games. They've dealt with no George Fant and no Abraham Lucas on the offensive line. They've dealt with no Uchenna Nwasu. Boye Mafe hurt his knee and missed the end of that Patriots game. Jerome Baker, starting linebacker, hasn't been playing. He came out halfway through didn't play against the Dolphins and came out halfway through the Patriots game.
Byron Murphy.
Yeah, there's a lot of signs pointing towards Murphy not being able to play this week and Leonard Williams being questionable as well. So we're talking about Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Boye Mafe, Jerome Baker, Uchenna Nwasu, Kenneth Walker, Leonard Williams, George Fant.
The NFC West is just going to be last man standing.
But those guys I named outside of our quarterback receivers, those are some of the biggest names on the Seahawks roster.
Absolutely.
And they're all banged up, and we're still 3-0. The hope is it goes both ways for some teams. Like the Rams got hit with we're just going to keep losing players. Some teams get healthier as the year goes. If the Seahawks can be that team that gets healthier, this defense should only get better. If Byron Murphy starts getting his feet wet in the NFL and is healthy, and Leonard Williams stays healthy, and Boye Mafe is healthy, and Uchenna Nwasu comes back and is healthy, there's no reason for this team to not get better. And that's what's so beautiful to me about this 3-0 start is I think they started 3-0 with some, I guess you could say, sketchy play, right? Like it ended up being a 1-possession game against the Broncos. It ended up being a 1-possession game against the Patriots. The Dolphins game was a different story, but it hasn't been it wasn't like the Saints for 2 weeks where they were scoring 45 points, winning 45-10. So there's been some up and downs while still pulling out 3-0 victories. And in the NFL, that's literally what matters, right? It kind of goes back to the Pete Carroll mottos, which is can you win the game in the first, second, third, and fourth quarter? Yes, right? Like the fourth quarter is when it matters, and the Seahawks have been pulling that off. But as long as, knock on wood, this team gets healthy in the right way and stays healthy, I don't see why we, especially after starting 3-0, do you see any reason why we couldn't go 10-7? Or
yeah, no, 10-7 seems very reasonable.
I'm not going to say something crazy, yeah, like 12
Yeah,
and 5.
10-7 seems very reasonable, and with the way this division is started, that should be probably good enough to at least be thinking of winning the division.
Which would be really nice. I would, if for a first-year head coach, if that happens, with a quarterback who people were kind of
iffy on.
Yeah, we didn't know if he was going to be 2022 Geno or like a regression from last year also. So far, he's been 2022 Geno, and maybe better considering what the offensive line's been and how he's had to overcome some of these problems. He's third in the NFL in passing yards, and we're 3-0. That's pretty impressive. So he's been carrying this team a little bit on offense, and I don't know. It's fun. This is so much more fun than those teams that, the last couple of years, I feel like, especially you were not loving the Seahawks teams the last 2 years. You're kind of like, this seems like the end of the peak era, and it was just not clean. There was a lot of sloppiness.
I feel like we're just in the beginning of a good era of Seahawks football. It doesn't mean I'm not picking us to win the Super Bowl this year or reach the Super Bowl this year, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And in this project that I think is going to take 2 or 3 years, by year 3, I think we will be in that short list of Super Bowl contenders.
Here's my biggest concern with that, and I think this is a good little ending, and maybe it's something we'll kind of find out as the year goes. Is it maybe sooner than 2 to 3 years or not? But my biggest concern with this team right now is something that's what's holding the team together, which is the quarterback play. But Geno Smith's like 33. My biggest concern is I feel like this whole team is going to be ready in 2 or 3 years, but then you're going to be looking at like a 36-year-old Geno Smith, and hopefully it doesn't happen what like happened to Russell Wilson with them. Different mileage on their bodies, of course, but like Russell Wilson's 36 now and can't even get a job starting in the NFL. So that's like, I would say my biggest concern is the way Geno's playing now, you would hope this is the window. But I agree with you that when you look at the pieces on the offense and defense, so many young pieces that the window's probably in another 1, 2, or 3 years. I just wonder, it's something that we don't have to worry about now, but I keep wondering, like, what is that quarterback situation going to be then? And it's not something we have to worry about now.
Yeah, it's a legit concern. Didn't think about it before, but I think the pieces will fall where the pieces need to fall.
Yeah, my hope is that, and, this is something I'm going to probably clip out for us. I think it's an interesting one, is you can always do what the Vikings did with Sam Darnold or what the Buccaneers have done with Baker Mayfield. You can always, I'm not saying right now, you can always go find a guy like a Bryce Young or a Malik Willis it was a nobody. He got sat behind Jordan Love this year. He went to a good organization. There's something about being at a good organization that helped these players. Bryce Young, somebody like that, I'm not saying him specifically. I'm saying someone like that. Bringing him in, 2-3 years behind Geno. It could be Sam Howell for all we know, but somebody like that might be the best option for the Seahawks. So they're not going to draft high enough right now for a quarterback. Right?
No, they're not. Or Jameis Winston for me.
That's maybe too sketchy.
It's okay. I like sketchiness. Give me some excitement here.
Yeah, people thought Baker would be a sketchy move, and he's been pretty good. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. Isn't that what he said once, right?
Yeah, and now he's
the best quarterback in the NFL.
Seeing goalposts for touchdowns.
Seeing goalposts.
I don't know. He sees a goalpost.
Goal line,
goalpost. I don't know. I'm just, ghost goalposts.
Seeing receivers in the end zone. I don't know. Goalposts, I mean, like, that'd be a lot of field.
Yeah, but you're seeing, you're close to
That's
it.
True.
Yeah.
Don't want to get near the goalpost for a win. That's my biggest thing, though. Is maybe we're going to have a project, and maybe that's what they see in Sam Howell for all we know, but see a project behind Geno and then see how it works, because what I'm seeing from the Packers organization, who remind me of the Seahawks as the new Seahawks, like the 2005 plus. When you have a quarterback behind a guy and they learn, it seems like it's a much better option than drafting a guy and throwing him out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, you let people develop. I mean, I think that's why players like Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta, I think is going to end up having a great career because he gets to learn behind Kirk Cousins.
Yep, I really wanted him to the Seahawks for that reason. I thought, hey, you know what, like, some people thought, oh, he's going to get the job this year. Kirk Cousins is keeping this job. Yeah. It's good. But Penix, 1 or 2 years from now, he's going to come in and you're going to say, oh, it's just like Jordan Love with Aaron Rodgers. Guys, you're going to say, oh, he's so ready. He's not Like Bryce Young was just lost out there, and that's hopefully. And Caleb Williams right now is lost. Other than Jaden Daniels, all the rookie quarterbacks haven't even thrown a touchdown.
Well,
yet,
no,
right?
Bo Nix looked really good last
Yeah,
week.
he did. You're right. But they've all looked bad for a couple weeks.
Exactly.
So we'll see what happens there. But that's one thing that I'm thinking about for the future is what's that quarterback situation going to be in 2 or 3 years when this team might be ready? And you never know, George. Hopefully they shock us all this year, and this isn't 3-0 is not a fluke, and they're ready this year. I don't think so, but who knows?
We'll find out, I guess, throughout the season. But yeah, it's exciting. So glad we're 3-0, and I'm looking forward to Monday night.
Very much. That's going to be an exciting game. Well, George, I think that's all we got. And let's we'll be back at the end of the week to talk some like specific Lion game stuff. And then hopefully we'll be back Monday night, Tuesday morning talking about a win.
I hope so.
We'll see you next time. And George, you know what we like to say?
Hey, thanks for stopping by.